And I want to chat with you guys this morning a very specific thing that I've been thinking about the last couple of days. And one of the things that we get very sucked into to a certain extent when we come on courses like this is I almost want to say the positive emotional state that we experience. Now, when you look at the human brain, you need to understand there's a difference between the conscious and the subconscious. And one of the concepts about the subconscious is that there's no time in the subconscious. Everything is in the present. So when you have a memory, for example, even though the memory is something that is in your past, your brain pulls it into the subconscious, or let's say it gets illuminated or revealed inside of the subconscious. And whilst that memory is playing in your subconscious mind, your brain experiences it as if it's happening at the moment. That's one of the reasons why a memory can trigger an emotion. Because if you understand how the brain files data, how the brain stores memories, every memory is stored with an attached emotion to it. So when that memory is extracted into the brain and it is remembered, then the emotion attached to it triggers with it. Now, because your subconscious has got no understanding about time, there's no yesterday, today, or tomorrow in the subconscious. Everything is now. The brain experiences that memory as if it is happening now. Now, that's a good thing to use when you want to put someone in a state or you want to put yourself into a very specific state. But that concept has got a little bit of a risk as well. Because the same rule applies when we start dreaming about tomorrow. What happens to the brain when you dream those dreams? The brain experiences them as if they are happening. Now, think about it from a different angle quickly. Some of you guys know people that are in abusive relationships. And have you ever met a woman that's been in an abusive relationship for a very long time? And you've wondered, why don't they just get out of it? It's like they just in the state of contentment. It's like they accept it for some reason. One of the reasons that happens is because we daydream. If you're in an abusive relationship, what the brain very often does, the brain dreams about a good relationship. Because the subconscious brain cannot differentiate between time, the subconscious brain cannot differentiate between fake or real, synthetic or actual. There's no differentiation. This is very simplistic when we think about watching movies. When you watch a movie, ladies, if you watch a chick flick, when you watch The Notebook, you cry every time at the same scene. When you watch a movie, intellectually, you know that that actor that is now busy dying, that you're crying about, he's going to reappear in another soap opera next week. But you still cry about it. Because a part of the brain does not differentiate between time or reality. It experiences what it experiences as if it is happening now and as if it is real. There's no differentiation. When your brain experiences a dream state of happiness, it means you are experiencing happiness. If you're in a bad situation and you dream about a good situation, your brain and your subconscious mind, your emotional states, experience the good situation as if it is happening. And that very often creates a state of contentment. In other words, even though part of my life is miserable, I have times when I have good moments, even if those good moments are fake moments. Here's the risk of that. It very often causes us to dream about what we want to achieve, experience it in the short term, and then it allows us to still sit on the couch and do nothing about it because we have experienced it. And that short experience gives us a state of contentment. And part of our brain believes it's happened. So we don't put in the energy and the effort and the behavior to actually make it happen. It's one of the reasons why we very often procrastinate on our amazing goals, because we think about them, we dream about them, we experience them. And because we experience them, a part of the brain says, I've experienced it, therefore I don't need to do anything about it. And tomorrow we wake up and we're feeling miserable because nothing has happened in our lives. And then we go back into that dream state. There's an old saying in the project management field, and it says, failing to plan is planning to fail. Unless you have a well-structured, well-formed strategy plan, step by step, on how you're going to achieve that dream, you might find yourself dreaming about the dream and not doing anything about it. So what I've done in my life is I've differentiated two types of dreams in my life. The one type of dream I call a dream. But the other type of dream, I do a deliberate action plan where I apply discipline and courage and I act on that action plan. Those dreams I call goals. So there's a fine line between a dream and a goal. And the fine line is the one has a strategy, a structure to it, and action. There's behavior. The moment we start taking action, we start getting into some kind of emotion. If you ever gone to the gym or you wanted to do some exercise, sometimes beforehand you just don't feel like it. And the first 5 minutes of it, you're just lethargic and you're not really putting in a lot of effort. And once you start getting into it, it's like something just kicks in and you start putting in a huge amount of effort. And then you're on a roller coaster of an energy drive and you start producing amazing results. Goals have that. Dreams don't. There is a huge difference between the two, and yet they are very close to each other. If you have dreams in your life and you have found yourself dreaming the same dream and realizing I'm not getting into it, you need to realize it's a dream. You've got no right to call it a goal unless there's a strategy and action attached to it. See the difference between the two? So ask yourself, what is your goal? Because here's the strangest thing about this. If you merely keep dreaming and not convert the dream into a goal with a strategy and an action plan and then a behavior, what you will find is that external factors will start creating and forcing you to behave in certain ways. Then you become reactive and you don't live a life of proactive. The moment you become reactive, Very similar to yesterday's training. Then you become controlled or influenced by something on the outside. You're not in control of your life. The moment you become proactive, then you become in control of your life. And that's a massive difference. If you look at successful people and you look at non-successful people, that's very often the main differentiating factor. It doesn't matter if you feel great, unless there's a behavioral response to it. It is merely just a dream. There's how many people around this world that have been dreaming about the same thing as you. And they've been thinking, I need to go do that. I need to go on that workshop. That thing has been offered for free. I'm really interested about this. And then they dream about doing it. And then nothing happens because there's no action. Motivation is one of the biggest false emotional states you can ever experience. Motivation is a false emotional state. Motivation does not create action. Have you ever been to, and I'm not knocking motivational speakers, you know, they're critical in our society, and I love motivational speakers. But have you ever been to a motivational speaking session? And at the end of the session, you're really pumped up. I mean, you're ready to take on the world. You're energized. You know this is the moment you've been waiting for. And you know you're now going to kick ass, man. You're going to make this stuff happen. And then the next day, nothing happens. And then the next day you've forgotten about it. And then a week later you're just back into your normal default behavioral patterns and your tank is empty. And the only way you can really feel that way is by going back to a motivational speaker. Motivation is part of the brain that gets disillusioned about a potential outcome. It experiences something in the future as if it has already happened, and then it feels fantastic. Motivational states very often is very similar to a dream state. So I want you to look at this differently. Let me give you a quick story. Let's assume there are two guys standing on a cliff, and at the bottom there's a wonderful ocean, a beautiful ocean. And these two guys want to jump off the cliff. The one person, number one, decides he's jumping. And as he's jumping, he's having this adrenaline rush going, wow, swoosh into the ocean. Very thrilled, excited. He now runs back up the cliff to the top. Person number two took a few steps back and decided he's not going to jump. Now both of them are standing at the end of the edge of the cliff. Which one now feels motivated to jump? Very simply, the one that's already jumped. You see, we believe we need to feel motivated before we take action. We're not. The first time you need to take action, you need to first and foremost experience an emotion that's called hope. Hope is a future emotion that says, if I do something, there'll be a result. Hope. It's an emotion of a positive expectation of something that could happen. Once I have hope, or I have the positive expectation of something that can happen, the next emotion I need, or the next state I need, is courage. You see, the guy that jumped for the first time, in that moment, what he experienced was hope, was a potential expectation. But combined with that, he also experienced fear. He also experienced a nervous state. And inside of those states, he applied courage to push him through those states, take the leap, have the experience. Because he's now had that experience, the brain can now reference that experience. Now the brain is motivated to experience it again. What motivational speakers do is they allow your brain to tap into things you've achieved in the past. Create that in a way where you believe you're experiencing it in your future. And now you feel motivated that you can do it again. But if it's a new behavior, you will not take action. You need to apply courage. Courage combined with discipline creates sustainability and results. A deadline forces the human to take courage. But here's the difference. If you decide you want to go for a run and you don't go for a run, then you dreamed about the run, but you're not taking any action about it. If you decide you want to get fit and you go and run every single day, to start that process, you need courage and discipline to start the action so you can get into a motion. Then you start feeling motivated and you start doing this more and more. That is a toward strategy behavior, because you're starting to run because you want to get fit. But there's another way to get you to start running. And that is by putting a snake in your room. That is a fear-based behavior. And all fear-based behaviors are not sustainable, because you will only run up to the moment where you believe you've gotten away from that initial catalyst that got you to run. The moment that fear is gone, you'll stop running. If you believe that time frames is what gets you going, then you must start to realize that you're living in a fear-based kickstart behavior. Would you rather want to live in a fear-based kickstart behavioral pattern, or would you rather want to live in a courage, disciplined, congruent behavior? Step into it, take the first action, teach your brain to become proactive, start taking the actions, then get into that discipline, then start feeling the pleasure, the rush from it. Now you're motivated to start the motion going, and now congruency and a continuous behavioral response starts. It's a simple thing to reflect quickly. Think about the times when sometimes you take a short holiday and you go on a holiday for 3 or 4 or 5 days. Let's assume you've worked very hard up until that point. Have you noticed that you need to unlearn the behavioral pattern of working consistently? Those first 1 or 2 or 3 days, your brain and body actually struggles to get out of the motion of working, because that congruency is installed. You have to teach yourself to relax. But once you've taught yourself to relax, have you also noticed that now you need to apply courage again to get back into the action and then the flowing of the motion to get back into that work zone? But once you're there, it starts becoming easier and easier, and you just start doing more and more. It's patterns, it's programs, it's repetition. When you build your strategy, when you structure your goals, and we're going to teach about this a lot in the goal setting component of this training, But when you strategize your goals, what you need to do is you need to install a personal self-celebration moment on every small achievement. So every couple of days, you want to have some form of a measure in place where once you've achieved it, you know that you've achieved it and you can celebrate it by rewarding yourself. Now, self-reward is something a lot of people struggle with. Self-reward is not when I go and I'm happy and now I hold up a poster and I say, look guys, I'm happy. Self-reward is when I treat myself to something. Now, I love chocolate. So one of the ways I treat myself is I literally take a bite off a small piece of chocolate. I don't need to eat the slab to reward. The gift or the self-celebration can be extremely small. But here's what I want you guys to understand. If I do a strategy and the strategy takes me 6 months to complete, but inside of that strategy, once a week or at maximum once every 2 weeks, I have a small self-celebration of achievement where I reward myself. It might be I go for a beautiful walk. It might be I go work in the garden. It might be I sit down for 20 minutes, I play a game. It might be I go and I meditate. It might be I listen to a beautiful song. It might be I eat a piece of chocolate. Irrespective of what it is, it's some kind of behavior where I say this behavior is my celebration reward for achieving. If I do that every week or every 2 weeks for the next couple of months, what I am doing is I'm reprogramming my subconscious mind that discipline is rewarding. That discipline comes with celebration. We need to understand that as humans, you only have a single fear. You are only born with one fear. The only fear that you are born with is the fear of the unknown. That's why we're scared of the dark. That's why you're scared of unknown things. We don't like running in the mist because we don't know what's ahead of us. As humans, we'd like to know what's ahead of us. So our biggest fear is the fear of the unknown. When you plan a goal, when you start strategizing, when you realize that you've got a hairy, scary, magnificent, audacious goal that you want to achieve, if you've never achieved it in your life before, it is an unknown. Because it's an unknown, instinctively, as humans, we go into a state of fear. And it's not a fear of failure. That's a complete disillusioned lie. It's a fear of the unknown. But because the brain struggles to comprehend this fear of the unknown, it tries to give it meaning. In the process where the brain tries to give it meaning, it starts believing it's a fear of potential failures. It has to justify the fear to itself. So it starts coming up with potential reasons of why it's fearing. And those potential reasons are possible things that can maybe go wrong. Now, if you think about your own life, how many times in your own life have you feared something in the future that could possibly go wrong? But 99% of the time, it didn't even happen. And the 1% of the time when it did happen, you realize it's not so bad after all. And the reason that happens is because that future fear is a disillusion. It's a complete disillusion that the mind creates because the mind fears the unknown. Now, what do you need to step into the unknown? Not motivation, not inspiration. Inspiration might help. You need courage. It is in that moment of fearing your own greatness that you need courage to become the person you are capable of becoming. As long as you stay in your comfort zone, you will feel content. You will feel safe. Being safe in life, being in a content state, being in a comfort zone is the biggest handbrake that is holding you back. It's holding you back from your true potential you. You act in the midst of it. You act in the midst of the courage. You do. It's a verb. Courage, to apply courage is not an emotional state. Applying courage is a verb. It's an action. You start doing something. Force yourself to do something. What is the one thing? You know, if I often get people that talk to me and say, I want to become a speaker. I want to become a motivational speaker, but I am petrified to speak in front of groups. If you listen to people that have become speakers, and I'll take myself as the example. Do you think I woke up one day and I went, I'm going to be a speaker. I'm going to speak in front of thousands of people. And I had no fear? Of course I had fear. Some of the guys that know me well, every time I need to speak in front of a new group, especially if it's a large group, I still experience fear. I have a massive amount of nerves. Courage means, in the midst of that fear, act.